Hello, everyone. As is usual for sessions like this, attendees are gradually coming in from everywhere around the world. We have a number of clubs from a variety of jurisdictions who have partnered with us on this event. And I see people gradually getting into the attendees section of the webinar. So let us just give it a minute or so for folks to log in, and then we'll proceed with some of the logistics of our session. Folks, I am a board member of the HBS Club of Toronto. We're delighted to host this session with Strauss Zelnick today. I wanted to welcome everybody first. Glad that you are able to join us at the introduction and at the invitation of your local club officers. And we are going to be running a session with the following format. We're going to have three major sections to the discussion, one on career entertainment industry, and the other on personal and team leadership, and the third on health and wellness. What's going to happen is Strauss and I will discuss those sections of our agenda, but please feel free to post questions into the Q&A box as we go along. If the questions are relevant to that particular section, we'll work our best to put them into the discussion, include them into our conversation. Please note that the session is being recorded. As a result, if you pose a question and the question is used in your name, that will be part of the recording. I am delighted to welcome Strauss Zelnick into our conversation with Harvard and HBS clubs. Strauss Zelnick is the founder and partner of ZMS since 2001. Became chairman of Take-Two Interactive in March 2007 and chief executive officer in January 2011. Strauss has been instrumental in establishing a strong corporate culture that is diverse, inclusive, and respectful, and is driven by the Take-Two mission to be the most innovative, creative, and efficient entertainment company in the world. Prior to forming ZMC, Strauss was president and chief executive officer of BMG Entertainment, a $4.7 billion music and entertainment company. This followed his tenure as president and chief executive officer of the company's North American business unit from 1994 through 1998. Before joining BMG Entertainment, Strauss was president and chief executive officer of Crystal Dynamics, a leading producer and distributor of interactive game software. Prior to that, he spent 4 years as president and chief operating officer of 20th Century Fox, where he managed all aspects of the worldwide motion picture and distribution business. Strauss holds an MBA and a JD from Harvard University and a BA from Wesleyan University. He currently serves on the boards of directors of Starwood Property Trust, Education Networks America, and also he is the chairman of Entertainment Software Associates. Additionally, Strauss, I think the Entertainment Software Associates, Strauss, you're no longer chairman, but you're still on the board.
Right, I was a chairman, but no longer am.
Understood. Additionally, Strauss served as the chairman of the board for CBS Corporation from 2018 to 2019, and Strauss is an associate member of the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, and is a trustee emeritus of Wesleyan University. Strauss, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. That was a very long biography, but thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. I thought it's important for all of our attendees, whether they know you from the HBS readings, from public news or otherwise, to know the scale and scope of your experience, Strauss, and your impact, and jumping around right into it. For additional background, you became president and CEO of 20th Century Fox at the age of 32. And I understand that you wanted to run a studio from a very, very early age, and clearly you made it happen at a very early age. What helped you reach this goal and obtain such a position?
Being in the right place at the right time, I would say, is primarily what helped me. So I think like all of us, there are serendipitous things that occur, and the question is what you do with them. but I was very fortunate is really the answer.
What do you think helped make that fortune?
Well, again, there were choices that I made. So when I finished graduate school, I was being recruited by investment banks and consulting firms, like everyone else who's at this meeting today. And I wanted to be in the entertainment business, and I knew that. But the prestigious thing to do and the thing that would pay me the most and allow me to pay down my loans and allow my parents to brag at cocktail parties would be to go to Goldman Sachs or Bain or BCG or McKinsey. But I really wanted to be in the entertainment business. So I managed to get one job offer in entertainment, which was from Columbia Pictures in the international television group, which is, really, really, really far away from motion picture production. I was going to be in New York City, not in Los Angeles, and I was responsible for licensing programming for international television distribution. So that's not sexy, and it has nothing to do with making movies. But I had the presence of mind to realize that if I went to Goldman's Media Group or McKinsey's Media Group versus Columbia Pictures, I probably had a better shot at being in the movie business if I went directly to a company that actually made movies. So I took, half the starting salary that I would have otherwise gotten. And I was the only person who graduated from HBS that year who had the word sales in his title, which was not prestigious at all. But, I went and I did it. And then I did well in that job. And that positioned me to get my next job, which was at Vestron. And Vestron was rapidly growing and was run by a chairman who believed in betting on young talent. And 9 months after I got there, I was named president and chief operating officer of the company. So I was president of the largest independent motion picture producer and distributor in the US. It was quite a small business, but it was a public company and it was the largest of its sort. And then the first picture I greenlit was a huge hit, and that positioned me well. And I developed a relationship with all the producers who worked for Vestron. One of them was Joe Roth. Joe Roth was hired to become chairman of 20th Century Fox. He needed someone to be president, responsible for running the day-to-day operations of the studio. And we knew one another, and I'd done well at Vestron. So there I was, and I got hired.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. What were some of the other major milestones that you think about that crafted your journey, that were big catalysts for your evolution as a leader and an executive?
Well, I think so many of them, but I guess the thing we tend to learn most from is failure. And when I had this pretty charmed, quick path to becoming president of 20th Century Fox, I had a really good run at Vestron, but Vestron was a super innovative, fast-moving, young organization, and I fit in well, and people liked working with me, and it went really well. But when I got to Fox, I was now in a very different world of major film studios on the West Coast, where fancy East Coast educations not only weren't seen as something positive, but they were seen as something maybe negative. And I dressed too formally. Back in those days, we wore suits and ties to work. I wore suspenders, and I looked like I worked on Wall Street. And I spoke in full grammatical sentences, and I didn't fit so well immediately in Los Angeles. And I did know what needed to be done. Fox was a turnaround. I'd been charged with fixing international operations and cutting costs and running the place more effectively. And so I set out to do that, but I did that kind of all guns blazing on day one, as opposed to developing relationships and getting to know people and building credibility, because I assumed the credibility came along with a business card. And the whole place just sort of seized up on me, and I nearly failed. I got feedback that I got feedback from my boss, actually from my boss's sort of henchman, who was the person charged with giving this kind of feedback, who came into my office and said, after 9 months, "We think you're really smart and clearly, understand the business, but you have no leadership skills whatsoever." I was deeply offended, because I prided myself on someone with great leadership skills, and certainly my career to date had implied that was an asset of mine. But I hadn't brought those leadership skills to that particular venue in the way that they needed to be brought. And I would say that maybe one of the things that has served me well in my life is I take in criticism rather well. Like, I like to be the best version of myself, and I don't tend to be defensive. I tend to be kind of practical where criticism is given. And my view about that kind of criticism is, it's sort of human nature to think, oh my God, that's terribly unfair. And by the way, it was sort of unfair. But it's human nature to say that's unfair and it's wrong, and like, you got it wrong and I'm good. My nature more often than not is maybe it'll sting and I'll feel like, that's not really fair. But then I'll say, okay, what can I take away from this? And what I took away from it was I was about to fail. Like, I was not going to make it unless I changed what I did. So I did. I had to change my style. And I was really fortunate. Right around that time, I was flying east. And this is back in the days before there were, there was Wi-Fi on the plane, and kind of the dawn of email too, and dawn of the internet. So I read on planes like everyone else. So I was in the bookstore at the airport. Remember when airports had bookstores? And I was looking for a book, and I couldn't really see anything that interested me. And my eyes landed on this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And I'd sort of heard of it, but it struck me as like pop psychology meets like how to be the most popular boy in the class. Didn't really appeal to me. But I picked up the book and I read it on the flight east, and it really spoke to me. And it addressed the very leadership deficits that I had. And I really put that book's lessons into practice right away, and it made a huge difference. I was able to turn around my career at Fox and be successful there. And I was able to learn from that experience and not repeat it. Or to put it in the positive, I was able to actually bring a better leadership style to subsequent jobs when I entered typically a job that I had no background in, because I went from being president of a diversified film studio to CEO of a video game company and knew nothing about video games, to CEO of a record company. I knew nothing about recorded music. So I had to over and over again kind of recapitulate the entry experience at Fox, and I did it better afterwards.
What kind of processes did you use to take those learnings and then actually methodically apply them and to learn and to provide even better results in the areas where you thought that either you thought or others thought that you needed improvement?
I mean, I don't know that it's very complex. I took the lessons to heart, and I did what I was told. That book's pretty straightforward.
Oh yeah. No,
do this, don't do that. I did what I was told to do, and then I would see the results and iterate. And I don't think that's different than anyone else's process.
Fair enough. What do you consider some of your next big milestones to take to interactive?
The ones that you mentioned when you reeled off my biography so generously. I was able to build up Crystal Dynamics quickly, diversify the company, and create some hits. The team and I were able to turn around BMG and build it up and diversify its creative offerings and make a bunch of hits. And then I started ZMC, and we did a number of turnarounds. And in each instance, we refined our playbook, which usually amounted to, what you said, run the most efficient, creative, and innovative organization that you can. And depending on the company, creativity or innovation or efficiency might rise in importance or diminish in importance. But ultimately, trying to do all three is what has led to ongoing success.
Understood. And then in terms of some of what you're seeing now in the entertainment industry, ahead of this talk, there was a discussion on one of the HBS groups, and Steve Robinson, HBS alumnus, mentioned remembering very, very distinctly you speaking to an MBA class at the school in 1992. You being there, you speaking.
Wow, see, Stephen has a really good memory. I don't remember what I had for breakfast.
There you go. He thought it was an impactful discussion with the takeaway for him being that technology is a great enabler, but original storytelling always matters the most. And so several of us in preparation for this discussion were wondering to what degree does this perspective, does this paradigm still hold? Does this paradigm still hold from the perspective of, from your perspective, the entertainment industry overall, the film and television industry? Does it still hold from the perspective of the gaming industry?
Yes, of course. And that'll never change. I think right now, a lot of people are concerned that AI is going to eat everyone's lunch, and not just lunch, like dinner and breakfast too, snacks in between. Like AI is going to take over the whole world, and we're going to have some, some extraordinary world where machines are much smarter than people, and then also much more creative. And I had a conversation with the head of a venture capital firm yesterday who really believes that machine learning will supplant human learning and creativity, which is an extraordinary way to look at things, because machines actually can only manipulate data that's fed to them. That's all they can do. That's not what human beings do. Human beings can dream of things that have nothing to do with data. Machines can't dream, and they're never going to be taught to dream. The fact that I have to say these words kind of astonishes me, because they seem so obvious to me. But there's, west of the Mississippi, there are a whole bunch of people who disagree with what I'm saying right now, and actually believe that AI will tell really great stories, and we just won't need human beings. And when machines are not causing death and destruction, maybe they'll be making great movies and video games. Like, I don't think any of the above is true. I think AI and machine learning are clever oxymorons to reflect the explosion of the intersection of big data, lots of compute, and large language models. And that's incredibly exciting. And it's particularly exciting to us as human beings because we haven't seen it before. So, while developments in AI have been constant for 60 years, and companies like Take-Two couldn't exist without AI and machine learning. The explosion that has occurred with Chat GPT and now GPT-4 has given us something we haven't seen before. So we're all really surprised. It's kind of like how, I don't know, someone who was born in 1700 would feel if you transported them, to 6th Avenue and 44th Street where I'm sitting. Like, they'd be super surprised. But they would realize that actually automobiles are not actually magical relatively quickly.
Right.
They might look pretty magical. Airplanes might look really magical if you come from 1700. But, then you actually look into the technology and the physics and you realize they're not magic. So right now, people who are fiddling around with chatbots are beginning to convince themselves that they're actually nearly sentient and therefore can be sentient. But that's not remotely the case. So it's a long-winded way of saying that there's nothing that will ever replace human creativity, but tools can enhance creativity and make creativity more efficient and take away the grunt work. And of course that will happen. That's what we've been doing for many thousands of years as human beings. We've been creating tools that make work more efficient and easier and enhance productivity, and also allow us to do jobs that are more uplifting. So 150 years ago, 60 to 70% of the workforce in the United States was engaged in farming. Today, it's less than 2% of our workforce, but we create enough food to feed ourselves and much of the rest of the world. I don't know so many people who are like, it's so horrible. I can't be a farmer anymore. Like, all those jobs have disappeared. It's like, yeah, they disappeared. And we get to look at this. I'm not actually getting my hands dirty at all today. So that's what AI is going to allow us to do. We'll get our hands less dirty and do more interesting things.
And the population is declining, and the productivity needs to rise to maintain levels of wealth and various other standards around the world. And to your point, you're thinking it's another one of those, and it's an enabler.
World population is certainly not declining. It is declining in certain countries, but the world's population continues to grow. So the point remains the same, which is more productivity is required, and AI will enable that.
Sounds good. Sounds good. In terms of your experience at ZMC, obviously you're seeing a lot of different kinds of opportunities. you're invested in a variety of companies that are in your portfolio. You are keeping track of the media trends. Your son, Lucas Zelnick, is an up-and-coming comedian, popular on TikTok, Instagram, social media. Curious about your thoughts.
That is not in my biography. How did you come up with that one?
Research.
Yeah.
Research. And by the way, I agree with you, the population increasing in the world, overall declining in certain jurisdictions. I'm thinking more years ahead to when a lot of the developed world, right, will be in the decline, and will some of the other lower middle income countries, where will they go? And we will have this interesting convergence where I think AI will help us deal with some of the problems of the future, not create new ones. And then I think some people think that some of how social media is behaving and how social media is interacting in the world are also wondering whether that's more of a positive, more of a negative. I'm always an optimist. I'm always seeing positives in different kinds of distribution frameworks, distribution of content. And then yes, in research we saw that, and I saw that that's what your son is doing. So curious your views on consumption of media and entertainment, how it's changing, what is changing for the positive, what in your view might be for the negative. What are some of the patterns that you're seeing in how the new generations, right, the people that are to come in this world, and people that are the younger folks in the Gen Z, in the Gen Z generation, how are they approaching content and content distribution?
Well, the media day continues to expand, and I don't expect that that'll change anytime soon. And the reason the media day continues to expand is that we parallel process. So people are talking on their phones while they're watching a linear television show, while they're playing a mobile game, while they're listening to music. So there's plenty of media. There'll be more and more of it. And there's some asymptote where you just can't consume anymore, it seems to me, but so far we haven't reached that asymptote. The media day continues to expand. The media day will shift, and already has. However, those people who think television is dead, or, by the way, I'm not really focused on the television business, although ZMC owns a television asset, but who think that television is dead, they're mistaken. Linear programming is alive and well, kicking. Americans watch about 5 hours of linear entertainment a day on average. They only consume about an hour and a half of interactive entertainment a day on average. So there's plenty of room for interactive entertainment to grow. It's already the biggest business economically in the entertainment business. It's growing more rapidly than any other business within entertainment. It will continue to do so as the cohort grows, which it will do as it ages naturally. So I think you can expect the world to focus more on interactive entertainment, but that's not really, you're not going to see a big decline in linear entertainment. I think you may see, again, you'll see more rapid growth in interactive entertainment. You'll continue to see a lot of parallel processing. And we've already established that, you know, a big part of the entertainment business is user-created content, whether that's on social media or in other places. There's a kind of a thin line between some user-generated content and some professionally generated content. I use my son as an example, so I'll play that back to you. He's a professional. He's not, you know, this is what he does for a living, and he does it quite successfully enough that you found him.
And found him funny.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you found him funny. I'm finding it irritating that my son is already getting more famous than I. Like, that was not supposed to be the program. So kidding.
Or not yet, right?
But not yet. After I die, it's fine. Like, can't he wait? Just have the decorum to wait.
Yeah.
But all kidding aside, it's what you hope with your kids. But he's sort of in between, right? Because is it user-generated content? Well, sort of, except he's professional. He gets paid for it, and he makes a good living doing it, and his living is growing. So you're also seeing a blurring of what is user-generated content and what is professional content. If you are, you know, getting outside of the Zelnick family, if you are a creator for Roblox, you know, you can make a lot of money being a creator for Roblox. You know, there's, again, a kind of a blurred line between creating user-generated content and being a professional content creator who actually makes a living on the Roblox platform, which is eminently possible to do. So I think all of that continues to grow. And, you know, Andy Warhol famously said, And I'm paraphrasing, in the future, everyone will be famous for 15 minutes. It was tongue in cheek when he said it, but there's an element of truth in that. But it still drills down ultimately to the fact that big hits are professionally created by professional creators for big audiences. Or said another way, if my son really wants to make a go of it, he's going to have to participate in professionally created entertainment with professionals, with probably big companies bankrolling him, and he will have to entertain massive audiences. Otherwise, he's not going to reach his ambition. He can't live on TikTok forever and reach his ambition.
Understood. How does that parallel gaming and how you're thinking about innovation, distribution, go-to-market at Take-Two?
Well, it's a great question. More and more we are engaging with consumers who want to create. So, we're not unmindful of the modding communities, for example, and we've welcomed them into certain of our games, and we intend to welcome them into more. We obviously are involved with Twitch, where our games are played and promoted by users. So we're already very engaged in users. And when we launch a title, we usually will launch in coordination with influencers who will play the game, enjoy the game, and talk about the game. All of that reflects this, the active user community, the sort of blurred prosumer community, and the professional entertainment business.
And Strauss, from my understanding, that's your view of the future of quote unquote metaverse, i.e. collaborative community, interacting, building content collectively. Is that right, or am I off? Because you at some point mentioned, my understanding at least of what you mentioned, is that you were skeptical of a metaverse that was a vision that was announced in 2021 by Facebook, but you think about it as more of a community of users, community of creators. Is that fair, or do you have a different perspective?
Well,
now in metaverse,
the term is already pretty hackneyed, and I don't think too many people even want to say the words anymore. But if I must, I think there's a role for big digital experiences that entertain and engage people. We have those here. We have that with Grand Theft Auto Online, NBA 2K Online, Red Dead Online. We'll have more of those here. And we have consumers who will go to those venues and play games, compete with others, engage with others in a way that isn't competitive, talk to people, hang out with people. If they want, have meetings or, run heists. They can spend hours a day doing it. And they operate in those worlds as a digital character, typically through, the expression of an avatar. And I think that's super interesting to a lot of people, obviously, and I think that'll continue to grow. Do I think that sort of eats the world any more than I think AI eats the world? No, I don't. I think it's a really interesting entertainment business. Do I believe that human beings have an interest in sitting at home all day and, experiencing life through a vision and hearing occluding headset that creates a 3D, even a very high quality 3D version of the world, as opposed to venturing outside? I do not at all. And there's virtually no evidence that I'm wrong, and people have been banging away at this for much longer than 2 years. There's a lot of evidence that VR technology will find other uses, medical and military primarily. But VR technology for entertainment and interpersonal communications, I'm pretty skeptical, and I have reason to be skeptical because lots of money's been spent pursuing this vision and it hasn't materialized yet. So no, you're not going to buy and sell real estate online, and you're not going to conduct your entire life online. But are you going to continue to do what we're doing right now, which is I'm able, with pretty good technology, to speak to, I don't know how many people I'm speaking to now. It's kind of a lot of people, and you said 10 different locations. That's wonderful technology. Will this technology look different in 10 years than it does now? Absolutely. Will it look better? Absolutely. Will it be more seamless? Absolutely. Although things have gone super well today, sometimes there are glitches. But do I think we'll all have headsets on and sit in HBS classroom and, before we go there, go to like digital Starbucks and get a digital coffee. No, I think that's a tortured idea and it makes no sense and it doesn't reflect human behavior. Among other things, we're all too busy. Everyone here signed on, 30 seconds before I started speaking. That is, if they're still here. And they don't want the added friction of some kind of wacky VR environment. They're not here to have, Strauss in 3D. It's probably bad enough that I'm there in 2D. They're here to, to meet me, I hope, and learn and listen. And, we have a pretty high fidelity visual and audio experience today. And I have no doubt it will get a whole lot better. It already has, but it doesn't need to be VR. Not for this purpose.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And we've covered a number of trends that are quite topical. And when you speak about founding ZMC, you sometimes talk about how in 2001, you had the outlook, you had the plan, you had the vision for what technology and entertainment and what the entertainment industry might look like in, let's say, 2025. We've talked about a number of possibilities, a number of trends. What else are you thinking about? What is ZMC seeing are as biggest opportunities in the media entertainment world for, say, 2030 and beyond? What new technologies in entertainment are you personally most excited about?
So at any given time,
haven't talked about.
At any given time, ZMC is pursuing 10 to 12 themes of interest. And the theme that I'm most interested in is the explosion of data, which is however much data you think consumer and enterprise will need and want in 5 years, you're wrong, it'll be more. Man, I was pursuing this theme 20 years ago, so not just because of AI. Obviously, AI puts a very fine point on it because we're going to need loads of data and loads of compute to make these systems work. I mean, extraordinary amounts of compute. So that's a pretty interesting theme. The question for ZMC is how do we play that theme? And we typically look for enabling businesses and technologies because we're not going to buy Google stock for our investors. That doesn't make sense, even though you might believe in Google or short Google for that matter, if you don't believe in Google. We're really interested in the growth of live events because as the world becomes more digitally driven, we think people need and want to gather interpersonally. And the way they do that is through live events. We believe in sports because sports basically can't be conveyed in an archived form, not primarily, because people are excited about the outcome. So they have to be conveyed in real time. So there are any number of themes that we pursue. We constantly update those themes, but generally what we're focused on is the intersection of media and communications on the one hand and technology on the other hand. And as you said, we try to look 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, not a quarter ahead, so that we can buy businesses that we can build and own for a long period of time. And then ultimately that we can sell on to a good buyer on fair terms, where that buyer can also create a return, right? We want to be a good seller, otherwise ultimately we won't be able to sell assets. And the way you're a good seller is if you're public buyers and creating good deals for them too. So we need to buy businesses that will survive and thrive for a very long period of time for them to be interesting to us.
Understood. Thank you. And then ZMC has grown exceptionally. Take-Two is one of the largest gaming companies in the world. I've heard from people who've worked for you that you're an excellent leader, specifically at motivating people, have an exceptional eye for detail. How does this manifest? What are some of your team building practices?
Did you ask them what my flaws were? Because that would be more interesting to discuss. Appreciate the compliment. Look, I think the job of a leader is to work with your team to establish your goal set, promulgate the goal set, promulgate the culture that is the way you want to achieve those goals, and then drive execution. Strategy is once a year, execution is daily. And I'm a big believer in delegation with information. So I'm not at all a believer in saying just do it. Like if you say just do it, stuff may get done, but it may well get done the wrong way, or even in an unethical or illegal way. So I never say just do it. I want to know how it gets done. but I don't dive in and do the job for someone else. We have a big organization now, ZMC, and its affiliates employ about 16,000 people worldwide. We have total group revenue of over $7 billion a year. It's a relatively big business. So if I propose to be the bottleneck, like nothing would get done around here. I do, however, want to know, and I certainly want to know about the bad news. I think the combination of a powerful vision that everyone agrees with aligned economic interests, with a stated positive culture is how you succeed. And we have all those things. So we agree on what we're trying to achieve. Everyone is cut in to the economic value of that achievement in an aligned way, using the same rubric. And we have a culture that everyone signs up to be part of and to observe and to honor. That, to my way of thinking, is how you lead and build a great organization. And you can also survive a lot of problems when you have a structure like that. Aligned, stated goal, aligned incentives, and a good culture. Each of those is kind of unique to us. In other words, our strategy and approach and goal set it's kind of unique to ZMC. Our aligned incentive program isn't unique to us, but it's rather unusual. It's formulaic, it's transparent, it's honest, and it's fair. And I would say our culture, especially in the world of media, is highly unusual. We don't have raised voices ever. We have robust debate, but it's kind. We believe that people are entitled to have personal lives and promote and support that. We're ambitious, highly ambitious, and we seek excellence. But we also live in a balanced world where we understand there are other important things to focus on as well. We believe in respect, inclusion, and kindness. And ZMC's website has its mission statement on the front page, and I think we're the only private equity firm on earth that has the word kindness in its mission statement, and we mean that. And I don't know, my entire business career, I think I've raised my voice probably 10 times, and I'm not proud of any of those times. There's no place for bad behavior in business or in personal matters either.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with our audience. It is, I think, important, especially in our day and age where there are a lot of bad actors, bad behavior in challenging economic situations, particularly. And you've mentioned qualities that are qualities, business qualities, personal qualities that you're instilling and you have instilled in your teams. You often talk about your capacity and your own personal quality of holding often two very different, opposing, one would say, opinions and views on a situation at the same time. So I've heard you say everything is going fantastically well, but everything is going much worse than it could have been. So this is an interesting quality that some of us share in, where it seems to create exceptional, unusual creative outcomes at times, but it could also slow down some of the decision making. How have you balanced this quality to your success, and how does that manifest in the organization?
I think the ability to hold two opposing thoughts at the same time maybe enables you to be a bit more humble. I'm not sure it slows down decision making. However, maybe it requires you to be more thoughtful. Years ago, it was my view that the sign of a good leader was someone who made the right decision quickly. It turns out that most decisions can stand a little bit of time. Maybe not a lot of time, but a little bit of time. And I realized it was more important to make the decision thoughtfully and maybe in an inclusive way as well than it was to make a snap decision. So I'm really good at asking questions and sometimes just standing by to wait for the answers. I've developed some patience over the years. And it's tempting to just make the decision as a leader, but probably better to consult the smart people around you and be thoughtful and reasoned and take a beat before actually answering the question. I don't know if that answers the question.
I think it does, and I think it folds into the culture that you've explained and the values that you've shared, which you have at ZMC and Take Two. Absolutely. And then speaking of personal leadership advice, you often speak about working hard, listening with empathy, uncompromising values. I'm curious about these leadership values. They are equally important to a leader, equally important to an investor. What other major principles, maybe not personal principles, maybe operating principles, systematic, other principles that you use as an investor?
I don't think ours are any different than anyone else's. I mean, we're ultimately, it's our job to create a return on investment on a risk adjusted basis. So, we underwrite to relatively high returns at TMC, and we want to mitigate risk. It's hard to put those two things together. In 22 years of business, we haven't suffered a loss yet. I'm sure we will at some point. And we've had very high returns. I think that's a reflection of being students of the industry in which we invest, being very disciplined, very realistic, and thoughtful about the future. It's also a reflection of the fact that we're hands-on operators, that we actually engage with our businesses, roll up our sleeves and work with the teams. We don't, just buy an asset and then show up at board meetings and ask a bunch of questions and get annoyed if the company performs poorly. Which is sort of a typical private equity playbook. That's not us. So I think our method is not for everyone, but it does work for us because it's true to our DNA. I come from operations. I'm still the sitting CEO of a big company. So I think I understand intuitively how to drive value through operations, and I probably don't understand as intuitively as some others how to drive value through deal making, by itself, which is why I'm not, why I'm not in the hedge fund business. It's why I'm not a generalist in private equity. I'm a specialist because I think I understand the sector in which we invest very, very well, and then how to operate in that sector, and that's how we create value. But I don't think it's the only way to create value. It just happens to be our approach.
Understood. And of course, every investment firm is different in their approach, the thesis, how they execute operations. How much do you think comes or came from you greenlighting projects, greenlighting film projects, and looking at a portfolio of opportunities to greenlight? Here you're looking at investments, adding them to an existing portfolio. How many parallels, or are there any in those experiences?
Yeah, it's basically the same process. You have people around who are advocating a particular decision, and you have to decide who you're going to listen to and why, and then ultimately allocate capital. I mean, what CEOs do in addition to leading is allocate capital. And primarily, my job is capital allocation.
What were the major learnings, the major challenges that led to learnings on the investment side?
Well, we did turnarounds, so just trying to fix them and not lose our shirt was was a big challenge and a big learning experience. So we learned trial by fire. We had our initial deals were basically really bad businesses that had been really poorly run for a really long period of time, and we had to fix them, or we would lose our capital. So we figured out how to do it because we didn't have a choice. Understood.
Christian Volk is asking, what is your view on competitive gaming esports as a investment opportunity, investment market? Can it rival traditional sports in the future?
Well, it's been sort of a flat market for a long time. It's been roughly $1 billion market for about 5 years. And no one's really making money in esports. Teams aren't making money, leagues aren't making money. And the biggest player is still League of Legends. So it's tough. We're thrilled about the development of our esports business, which is the NBA 2K League, which we own in a joint venture with the NBA. And it's done great. Viewership goes up every year and has great leadership and I think a lot of upside. But I've said before, and I still believe it's going to take a long time for that business to develop. For the business to rival the professional sports business, it will be a very long time.
Understood.
But I wouldn't rule it out.
Hmm?
I wouldn't rule it out.
Oh, you wouldn't rule it out? Understood.
No, I mean, it's going to take a long time.
And what do you think about, and I'm going to rephrase Rimal Shik's question, what do you think about in-app, in-game purchases? What are your thoughts on creators creating items that will be sold in the virtual world and the proliferation of that business model?
Well, it already exists. I mean, in-app purchases generate billions of dollars a year
Right.
for two. So it's not really what I think about it. That's sort of like asking, what do I think about electricity? I think electricity is good, personally.
And it's
In-app
fantastic.
purchase is good thing. Lack of in-app purchase is bad thing in our business. Will they continue to grow as long as you keep giving people, great content and wonderful experiences with which they'd like to engage? They'll continue to buy.
Sounds good. Makes sense. Intuition is often perceived as the aptitude for immediate comprehension. Many great investors are said to be great at intuiting various results. However, intuition may also be the outcome of one's collective past experience. What is your view on intuition in private investing? Does this hold during our unusual times, or past knowledge is often considered to be outdated and incomplete? Or how much are you going by sort of hard factual data? Where does intuition come into play?
It's a great and subtle question. Look, everyone has access to data and everyone has access to analysis, and AI is going to bring data and analytics much more widely to people at a much lower cost. The question is what you do with that data. So, every time we get a deal done, we've decided that we want to pay more than our peers who are in exactly the same business, provide access to the exact same data room, who employ people who went to the exact same schools, who were trained by the exact same banks to do the exact same models. But somehow we decided that we want to own it at a price that they didn't want to own it at. So is that driven by intuition? I'm not sure I'd use that word, but it is driven by the intersection of your own strategy and your own investment profile, your appetite for risk, your desire for reward, or your expectations with regard to liquidity and timing, and the opportunity set. And I'm not sure I would call the decision making for which I'm responsible intuition driven, but I do subscribe to the view that it's some intersection of data and analytics and experience, and then, some synthesis of all of the above to arrive at a conclusion that's a wise allocation of capital. Is that intuition? Perhaps. I think of it as a bit more linear than that.
It's helpful to understand your perspectives. Meanwhile, we're getting questions from AJ Duggar and Jonathan Vasilenko, and the questions are generally in the health and wellness realm. So Strauss, how did Strauss Zelnick, the wellness guru, emerge? What was the work up to becoming Ageless?
So I was not really an athlete in high school and college. I was super skinny and I was a student. I was really focused on my studies. So in college, I lifted some weights, which had no effect on me because I was too skinny. And I ran. I have a runner's bill, but I wasn't a particularly good runner. And I played squash, not particularly well. Just wasn't an area of focus. And when I got to Harvard, I was hanging around with my friend Ted, and he sort of looked over at me and said, Strauss, you have a paunch. And I was like, I don't have a paunch. I'm skinny. I've always been skinny. He said, well, you may be skinny, but you do have a paunch. And I looked down. I was like, oh my God. And the next day I went over to Logic, where there was a new gym. I'm really dating myself because this is before the gym at HBS was built. And I started working out. I started really slow. I think I worked out for like 15 minutes, a couple days a week. And I slowly developed an interest in fitness. And then, over time, it sort of picked up speed and interest. And when I started my own business, initially I had plenty of time because we had no business. So a friend and I bought bikes and we started cycling. And cycling got me into better shape, and I found that interesting. And then my wife encouraged me to hire a trainer because she said, for someone who spends so much time in the gym, you don't look very good. I think you need a trainer. That trainer sort of kicked me into shape. And then it just continued to grow and grow. And I'm now the trainer. I train a lot of people. I train with big groups. I started a fitness group that sort of unintentionally turned into something rather large. It's now called The Program, and it's in New York and a couple other cities, and hundreds of people train in the program. Then I was encouraged to write a book about sort of the intersection of age and fitness and health and wellness and spirituality. And that's what the book is about.
Yeah, and talking about expanding the health span, right? And the amount of time that we can stay at top physical health. What secrets have you found to achieve this, other than having people in your life, a friend, life partner who alert your attention to needing to become even stronger?
I mean, I think in my case, it was, I sort of latched on fitness, and it became an area of great interest, and it turned out to provide a social life and made me feel good and look my best. And so it was sort of self-reinforcing. And I encourage people, if they're interested in being healthier and fitter, to start slowly and gently. Don't try to do everything overnight. Don't try to, don't believe that you're going to get, a beach body in 4 weeks, even if some online publication says you will, or Instagram pushes you a supplement that says you will. None of that will work. What will work is just a dedication to appropriate physical activity day in, day out. So, if you don't want to have your teeth pulled and replaced by dentures, you probably should brush your teeth and floss daily. If you don't want your body to fall apart, you got to get, probably 5 days of exercise a week of some sort. Could be walking, by the way. Walking is a very good exercise. It doesn't have to be weightlifting, although weight-bearing exercise probably does keep you young in many ways. Keeps your muscles strong, keeps your body from bending over, helps you maintain your balance. Lack of balance is one of the worst things that happens in aging. Keeps your skin looking good, and it does help sort of address a lot of the markers of age. But you're still going to age, just may feel better, as you said. Ultimately, does it affect your lifespan? There's not a lot of evidence that it does. You probably increase your lifespan, this is barring some horrible accident or disease, by 4 to 6 years, which isn't that much time. But you should be able meaningfully to enhance your health span. And that's really what I'm playing for.
Are there any technologies in health and wellness that you're most excited about? Technologies or practices?
Well, I mean, if you listen to David Sinclair,
yes,
there are all kinds of things, that are on the horizon. I'm a bit skeptical. I just saw him speak at a conference, and he said there's going to be, a shot that you can get within 2 years that will reverse aging. Really, 2 years, unless they're in FDA trials now, that seems impossible, unless it's going to be off-label. But do I really believe that we're going to get shots and I'm going to look 25 years younger? I don't think so. But he does believe that. So for me, I'm still back at the basics, which are, go to your doctor regularly, get an annual checkup, do what the doctor says. If you're supposed to take medication, take medication. Go to your dentist regularly. Actually, it really affects your health. Have some kind of robust exercise program, even if it's just walking 5 days a week. Don't be overweight. Eat a moderate diet. You know what you should eat. And to the extent that you're putting things into your body that aren't optimal for your body, like alcohol or sweets. I don't drink alcohol, but I do eat sweets. Try to be moderate about it. Don't smoke under any circumstances. That's like the number one factor, most highly correlated with a bad short life, is smoking. And that comes out of the Terman study, which is actually owned by Harvard University. There's a book called Aging Well that's based on the Terman study data. You can read it. You don't want to smoke. So, there are 173 people on today. Don't smoke. But everything else is kind of up for grabs in moderation, depending on the life you want to have.
Appreciate it. Appreciate these thoughts. our audience, what is your perspective on the amount of time that one should be dedicating to keeping healthy, exercising versus, the rest of their life, busy work lives? And people are also curious about how you're making it work, given the amount of time that you spend on health and fitness. How do you balance? How do you recommend others balance? Then maybe others are in a situation where they're in a different phase of their career than yourself.
It's a very personal choice, and it's a uniquely American belief that we can have it all. You can't have it all. You have to make choices, and at any stage of your life, the choice may change. So when I was in my 30s and I had 3 little kids at home, and I was building businesses, I didn't have the time to devote to fitness that I have today, where I'm on top, sitting on top of a relatively big business. I have a lot of colleagues. I have a lot of help and resources. So you have to choose. My friend Kevin Ryan says at any given time, he thinks you can have 3 or 4 priorities if you want to have a good life. And I push it to 4, but my 4 priorities at any given time are family and friends, work, fitness, and charitable work, mentoring, coaching, and the like. Which means there are a lot of things I can't focus on. So I actually really enjoy like hanging out at the beach. I know it's hard to imagine, but I do. But I just don't devote that much time to it because the other stuff is a higher priority. I really like linear entertainment, but I don't watch very much television because it takes too much time. I don't watch too many movies. I really like reading books. I do read. I read about at least a book a month, but my reading time is really on planes. I'm on planes a lot, so I can read because otherwise I have other priorities that weren't on that list. You owe it to yourself to make your own list of priorities and then pursue those. That's consistent with a good life. And my priorities are not yours. Everyone gets to make their own choice. And some people, their priority is work, or their priority is fitness, or their priority is lying on the beach. That's great. Suits me. It is important, though, if you have the luxury that we all have to make those choices. And that luxury, what I mean by that is, there are 8 billion people on the face of the earth, and probably 95+% of that population has no choice. Their priority, their sense of balance is feeding their kids and putting a roof over their heads. That's their priority. And they often haven't had the choice to say, what do I want to do? Do I want to, work here or work there, or go to this school or that school? We've, by definition, we're all Harvard grads. We've had an extraordinary luxury thrust upon us, which is we get to choose. We get to think about high-class topics like, what do I want to do today? What am I passionate about? What do I care about? I think having been given that luxury, we owe it to ourselves to stop and think, what do I want for my life? What do I truly want? Like, what is my success? Not what Strauss's success or Boris's success. Like, what's my definition of success? Most people don't care about the money that much. Most people don't actually want to be a CEO of a business.
At the core of it, right? Where maybe that's a way to achieve some other inner need, right?
Yeah, but I mean, most people actually care about their personal lives and their partner and their kids and happiness, and their vision of success, if they're honest with themselves, may have very little to do with the traditional American dream. And in my case, there were plenty of things that were of value to me that are not of value to other people. So if I devoted less time to working out, maybe I'd make more money. I don't know, but it turns out like making all the money in the world isn't the primary interest in me. I like doing well, it speaks to me, but I'm not trying to earn the last dollar on earth. I'm frankly more interested in making money for other people and enhancing their lives. That's not true for everyone. So I suppose that's my parting word, which is take the time to think about what success means for you, not tomorrow, but in 20 or 25 years. Like what feels to you, honestly, like when you're looking back on most of your life, you'll say, that was the life well lived. I did what I set out to do. I'm happy I did that. And then try to make choices that are in service of that vision, not in service of some goal that, someone else is applying to you. I've mostly lived my life that way. And I think that's one of the reasons that I've had a pretty good run in the context of what I set out to do. That's, I think, all you can ask for.
It's fantastic. Strauss, thank you very much for this insightful discussion, inspirational discussion, helping our friends, our colleagues in the HBS and Harvard community and guests become that much more impactful in their lives, hopefully in impacting the world positively and helping make it a better place. I appreciate your time. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.